Are you tired of spending too much of your hard-earned money at the supermarket? Are you dreaming of farm fresh eggs, homegrown veggies, and homemade everything? Well, welcome to Ditch the Store, where we break free from supermarket dependence and take back control of our food and household essentials. I'm CJ, and I'm here to show you that life is too short for store-bought eggs. So let's get started. G'day everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ditch the Store. Episode 147 this week, and as we've been discussing for all of January, things are all about starting homesteading and about getting into homesteading and what that means and the kind of things that beginners need to know that they don't always think about. Now, last week I said I was going to talk about 10 beginner mistakes to avoid. I actually came up with 12 when I did all of my research. There was a couple that I just couldn't leave out. I was like, no, I'm going to do 12. I don't care if it's not a round number. 12 mistakes that you need to avoid. So that's what we're going to be discussing this week. Now, I hope that your January is going amazing. I hope that if you are in Australia, the kids are not bothering you too much, because for my overseas friends in Australia, all of January is school holidays for most schools. I think my daughter, because she's going to college this year, she goes to year 11 in ACT. They have college, not high school, for year 11 and 12. And she starts, I think, on the 30th. It's a weird, she starts right at the end of January. But because she's new for year 11, they're starting them earlier than the other kids. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to try not to go over this week. I went over a little bit last week, so I'm going to try not to go over. But these are things that I think, from the conversations that I've had with people that reach out to me on social media, these seem to be the things that most people don't think about or just don't factor in when they're thinking about homesteading. They don't really kind of sit back and go, is that going to impact me? They think, no, I'll be fine. And some of it, you might be okay, but it's probably worth considering, especially if you're a beginner. This is when you need to be sitting down, planning these things out and going, what are we going to do contingency plan wise if this happens, or for this, what are we going to look at? So let's get into it. Now, I've divvied it up into 3 different groupings because there was 3 different groupings. One is the practical mistakes that people make. One is the mindset mistakes that people make. And the other one is the lifestyle mistakes that people make. So we're going to start with the practical mistakes. And the first one was one that I mentioned last week, and it is a big one. Not securing animals on your property properly. Say that 10 times quick. Let me tell you, animals, livestock of any kind, will escape where possible. Chickens will fly over fences. Chickens will get into veggie gardens. Chickens will get out on the road. If you leave a gate open, chickens will get out. Am I getting that message across that chickens are escape artists yet? A lot of chickens won't. A lot of chickens will just stay in their yard. They're just happy to be there. We have a couple of chickens here. One is goat chicken, who just refuses to live in the yard completely. She's actually in hiding at the moment. We think she might have decided to go clucky again. So she just goes and finds somewhere on the farm and sits and goes clucky. Funny bit is, because she's not in the yard with the roosters, none of her eggs are fertile. So we usually try and find her, and then we go and get 12 fertile eggs out of the yard from other chickens and put them under her and put her in the brooder house, because she is a great mum and she hatches them out, no problems at all. She hatched out, I think, 10. Out of 12 eggs, she hatched out 10 last year. So yeah, she is a good mum, but she will not be contained. We put her back in the yard for the first 6 months we're out here. We put her back in the yard every single day, and every single day she would be back out the next morning. Her mother, Agnes, is an Arakan, and she chooses when she stays in the yard and when she decides to come out. And she sometimes, we joke and say, oh, you're out for holidays visiting your daughter, she just flies over. But she can fly back in as well, and she puts herself back to bed when she chooses to go back. So they will fly over fences. So if you are in an area where you need to keep animals contained, or unlike us, we have a Merima who is a livestock guardian dog, and she protects the chickens, so we don't have to worry about foxes so often. We have had a fox attack in the last 6 months, but but we've also had a lot of foxes around here. If you don't have a livestock guardian dog or some other kind of protective security, lights, things like that, then you need to make sure that you can contain your chickens, particularly overnight, because they will go and roost in trees and things like that. Now, goats. Sheep aren't so bad. Sheep will push through fences and things like that, but goats are the Houdini of farming world. Horses, cows can be contained with a single strand of hot wire. You can keep a single strand going and those cows will touch that hot wire and they will learn and they will never go back to hot wire. Pigs can be kept in with a single strand of hot wire that's only 4 inches off the ground kind of thing, and the pigs will learn that's hot wire and they'll touch it, get a zap, and they won't go back. Goats, I've seen goats with hot wire work out that the hot wire is just that one strand that's sticking out from the fence. So they then get down on their belly and climb under the fence because they know that the hot wire can't hit them when they're down low. Goats are Houdinis when it comes to climbing out, and they also jump. We have Charlotte, Sage, who we lost this year. Both of those goats, we used to call them gazelles because they would just run to fence and jump over it. If they want to get out, they just jump over. That's what they do. So you really need to make sure that you've got fencing that's appropriate to the animals that you have. And if you're not sure about it, go online and Google the shit out of it, because you will find stuff. There will be stuff everywhere for different fencing requirements for different animals. It's important for a lot of reasons. One is that the safety of the animal. You don't want them getting out on a road where they might be hit by a car or something like that. But also too, there might be areas of the farm that you don't want those animals going into. I don't need my chickens in my veggie garden. I don't need the goats in the veggie garden. We also need to keep, if you have, say, a buck, you'll need to keep that separate from the does, because you don't want the buck running with the does all the time, because then you never know when your babies are due. And if you don't know when your babies are due, it becomes a real guessing game, and it can be very painful. So there's lots of reasons why you need to contain them. Now, fencing does cost money, but you don't have to spend a fortune. You don't need to have this beautiful poster rail fencing that you see on horse studs. That's great for horses, not so great for goats or chickens. Chickens need, our chickens at the moment are fenced into an area with just what's called Thunderbird fencing, which is an electric fence that is wire, like soft wire fencing. It's not turned on, it's not electrified, and it still keeps our chickens in. If there's holes in it, they will climb out over it. If the fence is dipped down a bit and it's too low, they'll fly over it. So those are the kinds of things you need to think about. If you have a fixed yard, then you need to think about actual chicken mesh, which is the smaller mesh. It's like a hexagonal shape. And that's so that you can protect them from foxes, possums. Snakes are still going to get in there. Snakes will get in anywhere. Birds of prey, things like that. You want to be able to protect them from that. And fox can get in and destroy an entire flock in one night. So you really need to worry about that. Fencing wise, goats, you don't want them out on the road. You don't want them going into a next door neighbour's property. If a goat goes into a next door neighbour's property and they dispatch the animal, then you really don't have a leg to stand on, because you've allowed that animal to go loose. So you really need to make sure fencing is up to scratch. And it's probably the big one that people don't realise. The number of times I see posts on our local Facebook pages, somebody's cow's out, somebody's goat's out, there's sheep out here, there's a dog here, because that's another one. You need to make sure your dogs aren't wandering onto other people's property. Our Marima can't get out of the area that she's in, neither can the Kelpie. Marimas don't have a recall. You cannot call them back. They will come back when they're ready. And the Kelpie doesn't have a recall because the kids didn't keep taking her to dog lessons like I asked them to. Anyway, so the main solution there is reinforce weak spots. If in doubt, put animals in there, sit back with a chair and watch. They will show you where they can get out. Aviary mesh for chickens, electric fencing for goats, but if you do electric fencing for goats, you need to either electrify the whole fence or at least 2 strands, one low to the ground, one high to the ground, and lock up everything at night. Next one. Ignoring council rules and regulations. Now, on some cases, I would say ignore them because they're stupid and dumb. However, I'm going to take the higher moral ground here and say don't ignore them. The main one is if you're in suburbia and you're not allowed to have roosters in your backyard, don't have roosters in your backyard because neighbours will complain. You will probably hate it being crowed, listening to something crowing at 4 o'clock in the morning. But neighbours will complain and the council will fine you and you don't need to be paying fines. Building permits and structures. On certain rural areas, you can get away with building sheds on rural blocks, but there's other times where they have really strict regulations. And I know for the guys over in the States, the homeowners associations and things like that can be really, really strict about things. It's probably better not to incur the wrath of them. It's probably easier just to toe the line and do what they say. If the rule is completely unreasonable, say, for example, you're in a homeowners association and they say no chickens. You're not allowed to have even hens in the backyard. And that's probably something I would fight, but do it the right way. Fight it by writing letters, by trying to get the legislation or the rules changed. And then once it's changed, then you can go ahead and comply with the rules by having hens. So some areas do have restrictions about animals. Beekeeping, certain areas have restrictions on beekeeping, but in Australia, most normal house-sized blocks can have one hive. You do have to be registered. Grey water systems. Some places have really strict laws about grey water systems, which is kind of silly in that, if you're trying to conserve water and recycle water, then you should be allowed to. But like I say, if the restrictions are really tight and they're not going to work for you, start writing letters to the council and say, I want to change these restrictions. How do we go about changing these restrictions? Call the local councillor who is in your area, and you'll notice there's some councillors that are really social media savvy, and they'll be on social media all the time. Reach out to them and say, look, can I buy you a coffee? Be nice about it. I mean, the councillors, they don't get paid a lot of money here in Australia. Depending on the size of the council, they get paid bugger all. They get a lot of allowances, but they don't get paid a lot of money. Buy them a coffee, sit down with them and say, listen, there's this rule that says that I can't do this. It's stupid. It's like it's a rule that probably was made 100 years ago and nobody's ever bothered to change it, but we need to look at changing it. It's not working. Do it the right way and then go ahead and show them all, how having 3 hens in your backyard is beneficial and having grey water systems is making your garden very lovely. Yeah. Underestimating your water needs. I can't say this enough. As soon as you can afford to, put the biggest tank you can afford to put in to collect water off your sheds, your houses, have it all funneled into the one tank. If you need to do 2 tanks because you can't have a huge big tank, do 2 tanks. Have a tank on the shed, tank on the house, but collect as much water as you can. You will always run out of water in rural areas. We haven't, touch wood, yet, but I am thinking seriously about getting a load of water in because I know our tank is a bit low. And I really don't want to get to that point where we go, shit, we got to turn on the shower and we've got no water. But gardens, animals, washing, cleaning, all need water. So you need water. If you're not connected to mains water, you need to get tanks. You need dams for animals. So if you can have water troughs and dams in every paddock, that is ideal, but that's a lot of infrastructure. We're still trying to manage that now ourselves. And as we build more paddocks, we have to make sure we have water source to go into that paddock. Rainwater tanks are the best. If you have a bore, that's fantastic. Bores can be used for, in Australia, they can be a bit, I think there's a bit of an issue with salinity, too salty, but they can be used for animal water and they can be used for washing water. You just may need to make sure that you're putting washing soda in the water to break down the hard water because bore water tends to be a bit harder. Dam water can't be used for washing in. It's generally a bit murky and a bit mucky, but it can be used for watering gardens and it can be used for feeding to animals. Our milking goats are very fussy. They like their clean water, but all of our other animals drink out of the dam without a problem. Now, the way to go about that is to track your daily use. So summer is going to be the hardest time because animals are drinking more water, but try and track your daily use and see how you go. If you've got teenage kids like me, you may need to put a 3-minute timer in the shower because we can't have like hour-long showers here. It would just be a huge waste of water. We joke that we're members at a gym in town. For my leg, I joined a gym a year ago so that I could use the facilities to help build up the strength in my leg again. And I say to the kids after they've done their gym workout, go and have a shower. You can stand in that shower for as long as you want. It's their time to have a long shower because at home they get a 3-minute shower. So do I. So does the handy helper. And yes, we do use the gym showers. And you know, there are times where we do that when it's practical to do that. Other times it's not practical to do that. It's easier to do it at home. Do we flush every single time we have number ones in the toilet? No. If it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. That's the rule in this house. Obviously, you can't let it back up too much, but every time you flush the toilet, you're wasting about 6 litres of water. Handy Helper and I, with our new ensuite, are going to go to a compostable toilet, a incinerator toilet in our ensuite so that we don't have to worry about that kind of thing. Next one. We're still in practical things. Skipping on pests and disease prevention. We don't have a barn cat here, but we could probably do with a barn cat because we have a lot of mice out in our feed shed. But things like rats, mice, snails, mites, flies, worms, that's internal parasites, they don't stop, okay? If you have healthy animals, they will still, all those things will still happen. Please, please, please don't wait until it's too late. Barber's poleworm is the bane of my existence. I have lost probably now 4 goats to Barber's poleworm, and I finally think I found a solution, which is copper oxide wire strips that I feed to the goats. And I'm trialling that at the moment, and the goats are looking the healthiest they have looked in a long time. So stand by for an episode on that because I will come out and talk about it. But don't wait till it's too late. Keep on top of it. Mites, external mites, generally don't transfer from animal to human, but it's still not nice to have, you know, chickens covered in lice, goats covered in lice, horses with bot flies and things like that. There's so many different external parasites. It's easier to prevent rather than cure. So that's one of the mistakes that people make. They just don't think about it, and then they wonder why they've got animals with bottle jaw, which in goats is in sheep is Barber's poleworm generally causes anemia. They end up with this thing called bottle jaw. If you're getting that all the time, then you need to get on top of your internal parasite problem. So make sure that you understand the signs. Educate yourself on the health of the animals that you have, the livestock that you have. Educate yourself on how to get rid of rats, mice out of sheds. It's not always about poison. Sometimes there are other traps that are better. You might look at getting a barn cat if you have a particularly big barn. If you're storing hay and things like that, then I would say a barn cat is probably a good option. Barn cats, I'm not a cat lover, I have to be honest. I'm more of a dog person. But having a barn cat growing up, we had 10 barn cats, and without them, the feed shed would have been overrun with pests. There are other things you can do for pests. There are flip lid buckets and things like that when the mice are really, really bad. But the most important thing is to schedule on a calendar regular checks, cleaning pens, natural deterrents, and don't be scared to call a vet if you have to. I try and do everything without having to call the vet, like the vet is option of last resort, but I still do call the vet. I have a very good relationship with our vet because I do call him if I really do need it. The last one in our practical is no planning or record keeping. I've got books out. I've got journals. I will put a link in the show notes. Go and get yourself a journal. I have got goat keeping. I have got beekeeping, chicken keeping, farm keeping, like farm maintenance and planning. I've got the journals. Use them. They're available from Amazon, from Kindle. Honestly, you need to keep records of things. I have a spreadsheet that I keep on my computer, but I've just ordered all of my journals anyway to start the new year so that I can keep a really good written record. And it's easier sometimes. It's hard, unless you're one of these big cattle producers, you don't always have everything electronic. We certainly have no electronic ability out in the paddock. So having a book that you can take with you with a pen and write shit down is so much more beneficial. Write it down when it happens. You won't forget about it then. Beekeeping is a big one for that. I've always kept journals for my beekeeping where I take it with me as I'm going, I'm jotting things down so that I don't forget. You need to be able to track what's working, what isn't working, what's wasting time or money. Being able to track things that you've planted and what worked, what grew, what didn't. That's really important. How much feed you're feeding your chickens, because it's important to know that you're actually making money off your chickens if you're selling the eggs. If you had a particular plant that did really well or a plant that didn't do well, it's good to note that down so that next year you can plan around that. Having a homesteading journal app digitally, if you have that ability. A whiteboard in the shed. We have a whiteboard in the house that we write things on so the kids know, what's being done. Like at the moment, Lily, our only bottle babe that we have left, is on 400 mils of milk. But she's about to start losing her night feed because she's old enough now to lose her night feed. So she's about to start losing her night feed. We'll put that up on the board so everybody knows. It doesn't matter if you've had the conversation and they didn't listen. It's up on the board. They check the board. They go, oh, she's now, her milk's coming down on her night feed because we're trying to wean her off her night feed. So when that happens, everybody can just look to the whiteboard. It's really important to start simple but be consistent. If you're not consistent now, you're not going to be consistent when you've got more happening. The more you take on, the less consistent you'll be because you'll be running out of time. Okay, mindset mistakes is the next one. And the first one of the mindset mistakes is probably, I would say, the biggest thing that people make mistakes with, other than the fencing issue, because the fencing was definitely number one on the list. This one is huge. This one, and this one will ruin you. It'll blow you out of the water. You'll walk away from homesteading. Doing too much, too fast. And I am guilty of that. You do have to take it slowly. And that's why I say if you're in an urban block, start on the urban block. Start making soap. Start making your laundry powder. Start making sourdough bread. Start fermenting vegetables, even the ones you're not growing. Start a little veggie garden with herbs and things like that. Start a tray of microgreens on the veranda and see how that goes. Try those little things first. See what really resonates with you. If you are not a huge bread eater, then making sourdough is probably not going to be one. And just because most homesteaders make their own sourdough bread, if you're not a huge bread eater, don't make sourdough bread. You don't have to. There's no rule that says, oh, you must make sourdough bread because you want to do homesteading. Soap. If you have a particular soap that you absolutely love, I mean, I've got to be honest, when I hurt my leg, Costco had Pears, the transparent soap, Pears. They had that on special, a box of 20 bars of soap for $19.99, $1 a bar. And I just hurt myself, and the handy helper said, I went to Costco and they had this. I said, buy a box, because I'm not going to be making soap for at least a couple of months because I struggle to stand up. So he went and bought a box. It's been awesome. Lovely soap. As nice as my homemade soap. I like it. I like my homemade soap too. But you don't have to do everything. Do the things that resonate with you. If you're never going to eat microgreens or you hate coriander, don't grow coriander. That's the simple hot tip. But do little things first and see how you go. So start with just a garden project. Just growing a few things. Start with making some soap. See how that resonates with you. If that's working, keep doing it. Then slowly add the other things in. If something's not really working for you, like if the sourdough bread, if you start out, it's a pain in the ass and you're not interested and you really don't enjoy the baking process, scrap it. Throw the sourdough starter out. You don't have to keep it just because, oh my God, if I don't make my own sourdough bread, then I'm not a homesteader. It's okay. Buy your bread. Go to the local baker and buy a loaf of bread once a week. If you're not eating that much bread, it's probably not going to make any difference. If you go too fast and too hard, you will end up burning out. And when you burn out, you stop doing things and you drop things or you don't do them as well. And the really important bit with homesteading is to just take on the things that you know you can do. And that's why I say that's the biggest problem that people have, is doing too much too fast. If you're not feeling like something is successful, then you're going to end up beating yourself up about it. And that becomes a real mindset issue as far as I'm not really a homesteader because I'm doing this and it's not working. And, certainly my first 20 loaves of bread turned out shit. I was terrible at making bread and I really had to learn. I'm making cheese today. I'm making Philly cream cheese because we've got so much milk at the moment. And that took me a long time to get to the point where I was good at making cheese, let me tell you. But it's something that you just have to start slow and just take on what you can, bit at a time, so that you don't blow your brain out of the water. We already have full lives. You're probably already working full time. You might have kids, taking on livestock, taking on a garden, all that kind of stuff. It hurts to start with. You walk around going, oh my God, I just want 5 minutes off. I mean, Handy Helper and I literally only have holidays in the winter months because that's the only time we can kind of say to somebody else, come in and look after the farm for us, make sure all the animals' feet are pointing the right direction, make sure the chicken eggs are being collected. And through winter, we might only get 1 or 2 eggs a day for a month through winter when they all go in their molt season. And that makes it really easy for somebody to look after them because there's not a lot of work involved. But start with 1 or 2 things. It's my hot tip. Master them, then introduce something else. The next one in mindset is romanticising the lifestyle. Hello, Ballerina Farms. And I always pick on Ballerina Farms. I love their stuff. I follow them. I'm guilty. I sit there and scroll and look and go, oh my God, imagine having a kitchen that looked like that. Imagine being able to make all those things from scratch, having a milking cow and all that kind of stuff. I love it. I absolutely love it. But, and here's the big but, if you expect slow, peaceful mornings, baskets full of eggs, peaceful goats grazing off in the distance, the reality is you'll be covered in mud, you'll be covered in shit, all kinds of shit, chicken shit, goat shit, horse shit, cow shit, whatever. You'll be covered in it all. Broken fences will scratch your skin and puncture you, and you will end up having to go and have a tetanus and, get swabs and take antibiotics. You will be up in the middle of the night looking after goats at 2 o'clock in the morning that aren't feeding, or they've suddenly decided they're going to kid at 2 o'clock in the morning. The dog will bark to the point where you have to go and check because you think, oh, foxes must be in the chicken coop. The reality is that homesteading is dirty. It's physically hard. It can be mentally draining. And while it is extremely rewarding, I think it's extremely rewarding, and it is extremely rewarding if it's for you, it is definitely not glamorous. You will not be walking around in your Laura Ashley dress without being covered in shit, without being covered in hay, without getting stung by bees and bitten by mosquitoes and having lice crawling up your arm occasionally in the chicken coop. There's nothing glamorous about it. And I love these curated images of what homesteading is, and it does look beautiful. The reality is that that's not it. So don't think that your homestead has to look like the ones you see on Instagram, because it won't look like that. And you'll be disappointed if you really think that's what it's going to look like. It's going to disappoint you. The things you need to focus on as far as the lifestyle goes is not how it looks, but how it feels, and the wins that you have. If you sit down to a meal and, more than 50% of the things on the plate you grew or made, that's a win. That's a huge win for your family. That's a huge win for the health of your family. If you realise that you went to the shops and you only had to buy a select number of items because you're producing everything else yourself, that's a huge win. If you're going to the shops like me, literally I go to the shops, I buy toilet paper, what else? Tissues, women's products because my daughter, I use reusables. My daughter doesn't use reusables yet. We've discussed it, but at the moment I'm not pushing that. What else do I buy? Oh, I buy the kids' snacks. I buy the kids' snacks that are ultra processed to take to school with them. They don't get a lot of them, but they do get some. I buy coffee. Coffee beans. Coffee beans are always on the shopping list, as are tea bags. I can't grow tea bags or coffee here, so tea bags and coffee are always going to be on the shopping list. What else do I buy? Not a lot. I have been buying cheese because we haven't had a lot of milk. I'm now about to start making some cheese again. But that's pretty much it. And those are the wins that I focus on, not the fact that I go up to milk the goat and my tracksuit pants that I've been wearing for the last 3 days that are covered in goat hair and dog hair, and then the goats jump up on my leg, the baby goats, and their hooves are covered in shit. And so then I've got tracksuit pants that have got shit, hair, bits of milk, and they've been worn for 3 days. Yeah, that's not glamour. That's just the reality of homesteading. So don't focus on the romantic, focus on the practical and the wins that you're getting out of it. Now, the last one for mindset, second last one. Second last one? Yeah, second last one for mindset is over-researching and not starting. Paralyzed by YouTube, Pinterest, and all the other conflicting online advice. If you are waiting for the perfect timing, the perfect weather, the perfect setup, you're never going to get started. Do your research by all means. Go and do your research. And I'm a Pinterest groupie. I have a Pinterest board that I save things to, and that's awesome. But if doing all that is stopping you from actually getting started doing the real stuff, then you what do they call it? I can't think of the word, but there's a word for procrastinating by looking at fucking social media. Just get in and get it done. Go out, plant the seed. Go out, start doing the fencing. Go out, look at your irrigation systems. Yes, come in and do your research after hours, but during the day when you've got time to go and do it, go and do it. Pick one project, write out, have your little notebook with your projects in it. Write out what you need to do, but then just go and get it done. Stop procrastinating and just start. That's a big one. And the last one for mindset is comparing yourself to others, which goes back to romanticizing the lifestyle. Feeling that you're a little bit behind because somebody else has a full dairy setup. You know, I milk by hand. I don't have a machine. I look at people that have machine setups and I think, oh God, I would love to have that. Imagine I could have like 6 or 7 goats in there all milking at the same time. It would take me 15 minutes. And then I remember that I would have to take another 15 minutes to clean the machine out after I'd finished milking. Somebody who posts all these beautiful baked goods that they do when you're struggling just to get one loaf cooked. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. It's not a competition amongst homesteaders, and no other homesteader, not a genuine homesteader, will ever make you feel bad about not doing the things that they're doing, okay, or doing it differently. Nobody who's a genuine homesteader will do that. They will just be stoked that you're actually having a crack at it. Believe me, every time I see somebody post something and go, oh, I've never made bread before, but here's my first loaf, or I tried to make cheese and it's kind of turned out okay, I get so excited for them because I know what it feels like to be in that situation and to be, I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I'm going to try. And I tried and, oh, look, my soap actually works and doesn't burn people's skin off. And, you know, it smells nice. It doesn't stink. So when people get to that point, I get really excited for them. And I think most other homesteaders would be your biggest cheerleaders. So what you see curated on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or Pinterest, just remember that you're not seeing what's behind the camera. And behind the camera, and I mean at the moment behind my camera, my lounge is looking pretty clean at the moment. It was stacked up with shit a week ago because we've just got through Christmas. Was I bothered by that? No, I wasn't bothered by that. I don't care. Having a dirty lounge is not going to change the fact that I've got 2 beautiful milking goats who are in milk at the moment. I'm raising goats that are healthy and happy this year. I've got chickens that are laying like crazy. All those things are my wins, not whether or not my lounge looks clean. And my stuff is not curated. Usually when I video, I've barely done my hair. I never have makeup on. I don't wear makeup. So, you know, I never look like that Instagram ready. And if I've got anything more than shorts and a shirt on, that must mean I'm going out, in which case I'm not doing anything around the farm anyway. But getting guilty about it, getting worried about it will kill your momentum and it'll get you you will procrastinate over things because you are comparing yourself to others. So just celebrate your own wins. And remember that 90% of homesteaders out there would be cheering you on anyway. Now, the last section, lifestyle mistakes. Oh my God, I need to get through these, otherwise I'm going to go over again. So, not factoring in your time limits. You got work, you got kids, your kids have got sport, your kids have got other things on, they've got to go to a party, you've got to get into the shops, you've got an appointment to get something done, you've got to go to the dentist. Like me, you're walking around with a broken leg, which means you can't do heaps of shit. Maybe even you've got a partner who's just not that interested in doing homesteading. Factor all that in and be realistic about it. Set yourself up. I write lists for my tasks that I have to do, but when you write all that, factor in the fact that you may not get to it all. And if you don't get to it all, don't beat yourself up about it. Just try again the next day. And if it's not working, maybe sit down and rehash. Sit down and have a conversation with the family and say, look, my two kids at the moment have been awesome with me with my broken leg. OJ does the chickens every night when the handy helper is at work. OJ does the chickens without even being asked. He just goes and does them now. Now, I used to have to ask all the time while I've been off with my broken leg. He's been so good about it. MJ, she is feeding the bottle baby goat that we have without me even having to remind her. She knows to put the bicarb soda in the bottom of the bottle, 400 mils of milk. She knows to warm it up to just room temperature kind of thing. She does all that without me having to ask. But it wasn't always like that. We've had a long process of getting kids to the point where they understand the chores that we have to do around the farm. If you are trying to do full-scale anything, gardening, livestock, anything like that, and the rest of the family is not on board or you have extensive time commitments, you are going to end up resenting it. So just factor in what you can with what you've got left outside of your other hours. And make sure you take a little bit of downtime for yourself. If you don't take downtime for yourself, you will resent it eventually. I joke and say we never have any spare time. The handy helper and I do. We have date nights. We watch Landman or Yellowstone or, Tulsa King, all of the Taylor Sheridan shows. And we might only watch one show once a week, but that's our downtime. We sit down together, we have a glass of wine, we watch something like that, and then we get to bed because we've got to get up at 4:30 in the morning. But just remember, it's not a fantasy life, it is your life, and you do need to plan it. And if things aren't going to work, just scrap them. Scrap them and don't worry about them. Not including your family or your partner, which goes towards what I was just saying. If your partner is not on board, you are always going to struggle. And I'm in a couple of women in homesteading pages on Facebook, and I think probably one of the most common comments in there is, we have a homestead, my partner is not that interested. And I think, oh God, why did you start a homestead with a partner that's not interested in homesteading? The handy helper was all in. When we moved to the 2.5 acres, he was all in then. But when we moved to the 120 acres, he was all in. And I had to have him all in. Times like this where I've got my broken leg, if he wasn't all in, I'd be screwed. So have the conversation early. If your partner says, I can never see myself living on 5 acres in the bush, then he can never see himself living on 5 acres in the bush. And I say he, but it could be she. If you're a fella, your missus might say, no, I am not interested in that lifestyle. You know what? If she's not, no biggie. Go with the largest size block you can get in an urban environment and just do the things you can. Make the soap, make the sourdough, have a veggie garden. You don't have to go all in if the family aren't with you. Kids are a bit harder. I made the decision for my kids, which is probably not fair to them, that I just went, well, bad luck, this is what we're doing. That being said, I actually sat down and had a conversation with my kids around Christmas and New Year's time. And I said, look, I know that both of you probably would rather live in town, and living out of town is hard for you guys. And they both stopped me and said, no, we actually love living out here. And I said, I always thought that you wanted to live back in town. And my daughter said, oh, don't get me wrong. I love being in town. I love going to town, but I also love living out here. It's so quiet, so peaceful. I love the animals. Yeah, I can't imagine living in town now. And it made me feel much better because I felt like I'd imposed my lifestyle on them. And yeah, maybe in the beginning there was a little bit of resentment there, but certainly there isn't that there now. They were genuinely saying to me, no, we love going to town, but we're very happy to live here. We like this lifestyle. But if they're not on board, or if they're too young to be on board, I mean, younger kids, I don't know any kid that doesn't like being around animals. You know, if you involve them in looking after the chickens are probably the easiest one to start with. If they're very young children, involve them in looking after the chickens. Get them to help you collect eggs. I can remember OJ and MJ going in and finding that very first egg when we had chickens at Gunning. And they were so excited to bring this egg. They cradled it and carried it like it was gold, you know, inside, because they were so excited that we finally had an egg. You know, chicken produced an egg all on its own, which was awesome. It was an awesome experience for them. And I think it helps kids really understand where their food comes from when they're that involved, when they're that hands-on. But delegate little tasks to them, age-appropriate tasks to get them on board with helping you, because if the whole family are not in on it, it's probably not going to work. I've got to be honest. The number of women that comment, oh, my partner's not really interested in homesteading and now I'm struggling because I work full-time and I'm trying to do the homestead full-time. Honestly, I would say two things. One, give up homesteading or give up the partner. Which sounds terrible, and the handy helper will probably go, what the fuck? But I'm lucky because I have a partner that is on board. But honestly, if he wasn't on board, we wouldn't have moved to the big farm. I could not have done that. I couldn't have done it on my own. It's not a one-person job. Farmers, even big farmers that live on big stations here in Australia, if their wives were not on board, they would not be able to do what they do. Anyway, the next one, and it is the last one, number 12. Yes, it isn't the last one. Forgetting to budget. Homesteading costs money. Yes, you will save money in the long run, but it's more about health than money that you really need to be focused on, because in the beginning you won't save money. Buying preserving jars is really expensive. I want one of those amazing American pressure canners, stovetop pressure canners. They're like $600. They're $600, I think, US. So that's like $1,000 Australian. They're expensive. Goats, we joke, every time we go to the vet, it's $1,000 trip to the vet. Same with the horses, unfortunately, or cows. It is not a cheap setup. What it is it's a better setup. And once you get going with it, and once you get started and you've got all your stuff, then it starts to come good. So the chickens will cost you. And in my raising chickens for eggs, my Eggs Without Cartons book that is due to come out very, very soon, and also in my Breed at a Plate book, I discuss the cost of raising chickens. It adds up. Okay, but the good bit is a lot of the things that you buy, you only have to buy once. So once you've got a chicken coop that's a functional chicken coop, it's repairs only. You don't have to rebuild a chicken coop every year. What does cost is feed. Livestock feed will cost you money. Now, there are alternatives. There are ways around having to pay for just straight up processed feed. Microgreens that I talked about, you can grow them for chickens as well. You can get scraps from the local takeaway. If you put a bucket in there and say to them, look, I'll put a bucket in here. Can you just put organic scraps in there? So just vegetables or meat scraps in there and feed that to your chickens. I used to do that when I lived at Gunning, and it cut down the feed cost so much. It's a bit harder here because we're so far out of town, but it really does make a difference. There are ways around the costs. Tools and fencing are always going to be expensive, but you fence and then you don't have to fence for 20, 30 years again. Especially if you do it properly, you won't have to do it again. Preserving gear I've already talked about. Sourdough stuff, I don't have anything special for my sourdough. I've got an amazing enamelled cast pot that I use in the oven to cook my sourdough. But that's a cooking implement that I use for cooking every day as well. So, realistically, it's paid for itself already. But the really important thing is to track your expenses and work out what it is costing you. Add it all up, and then, if you're getting, 10 cartons of eggs a week that you're selling, we sell them at the moment for $8.50 a carton, which is cheap. A lot of places around here are selling them for 10, so that would be $80 a week. Now, at the moment, my feed costs are 20, 22, 44 a week. So I'm making, I'm selling my eggs cheap, so I'm less than 80, but I'm still making enough to cover all my feed costs, and that's still giving us all of the eggs that we consume as well. For 5 minutes effort, all the other stuff has been paid for. It's been paid for 4 years ago. So it does work. You just have to budget and work out what's the expensive bits and what's the non-expensive bits. Goat's milk, at the moment, I've got 8 litres of goat's milk in the fridge that I've got to turn into cheese because we can't drink it quick enough. It's costing me probably $1 a day to get 2.5 litres of milk a day. And I'm feeding a bottle babe, and we've got all this milk left over that we're consuming and that I'm turning into cheese, and it's costing me about $1 a day in feed. So really, and 10 minutes of effort of my time. So it's more your time that is going to be consumed rather than the cost of things as time progresses. And it depends how much value you put on your time. I love going up and milking the girls of a morning, so for me, it's not really an issue. But definitely keep a budget, keep track of your budget, know what you are prepared to spend and what you're not prepared to spend. And always, the last thing I will say on that before I finish up is always have an emergency fund. Always have money that you put aside that you don't touch for anything other than emergencies. Because when you have a sudden massive trip to the vet, you will appreciate having money that you can draw down on and go, yep, that's going to pay the vet bill, rather than having to use a credit card. And I've used credit cards. I think credit cards are a tool and they can be a useful tool at times, but you don't want to rely on them. Anyway, that is the 12, not 10, 12 things that mistakes that homesteaders make. I have probably made, at some point, I've probably made all those mistakes at some point. But I would hope that now that you've gone through that list, you may get to a point where you go, no, I'm definitely not making that mistake. Definitely going to do that first. If you have made any mistakes, I would be happy for you to post a picture and let me know of the disaster of, the $3,000 chicken coop for 3 chickens that only lay occasionally. But just work on avoiding at least a couple of those mistakes. If there's something that you know that you will always do, you might be a super budgeter and you know that's never going to be a problem. You might be one of those people who does not give a rat's ass about Instagram and go, I don't care what everybody else is doing. I don't care what everybody else's farms and homesteads look like. Mine's going to look like what it looks like, in which case, power to you, have at it. Now, next week, we are talking about homesteading without quitting your day job, because the handy helper and I both work full time, and the handy helper works shift work. I used to work shift work. I now work behind a desk because of all my injuries with my knee. So I am behind a desk. So I work 7 to 3 Monday to Friday. He works 12-hour days to make his hours, which is anywhere between 13 days a month and 18 days a month he will work, depending on the roster. But we both work full time and still do all the stuff that we do. So I'm going to talk about that next week. Anyway, I have come in just under budget on time. I will talk to you all again next week. Bye for now. Well, that's it for today's episode of Ditch the Store. If you're loving the journey to self-sufficiency, be sure to subscribe. You can also leave a review for us or share this episode with a friend who's ready to break up with their supermarket. If you've got questions or success stories, we'd love to hear about them on the socials. You can also find me at www.mojohomestead.net. Until next time, keep raising, growing and making. And remember, life's too short for store-bought eggs.